Right, I'll start again. Evening, members. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to our second overview and scrutiny committee meeting of the current council year. And I'll start with reading the webcast. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeated viewing, with copies of the recording being made available to those that request it. By being present at this meeting, it is likely the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you have any concerns, then please speak to the webcasting officer. And please could I remind members and officers to activate their microphones before speaking and obviously turn them off afterwards. Okay, thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
There are several apologies for absence, Chairman. Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Bassett and Councillor Macready and Councillor Pugsley, and Councillor Whitehouse has informed us that she'll be running late, but she will be attending.
Right. Substitute members, do we have any substitute members?
We have Councillor Rose Brooks for Councillor Baldwin.
Right. Any declarations of interest? No, doesn't appear to be. The minutes of the meeting, the last meeting we had, which was held on the 18th of July, the minutes are on pages 6 to 12. Can we agree those minutes, or do we have it? I'll take that as agreed. Right. The next item is matters arising and outstanding actions. There are some outstanding actions, but I believe all members of the committee have been informed of those and been kept up to date, so I don't know that I need to go into that. The only other thing which I was going to mention, looking at the minutes, if Councillor Phillip was here, I would have asked him questions about this, but he's not here. And that's on page 9, about halfway down the page, where Councillor Phillip added that the council have been running below full staffing level issues for a number of years now, and he was taking measures to further reduce the level of bad debts against the council. What I would like to have asked him is what was happening in respect of the bad debts, and if any progress is being made on that. I don't know if that could be recorded as an action, Laura. And the other thing, he mentioned about staff levels. At our pre-meeting yesterday, I did mention the fact that I'm personally a bit concerned about our staffing levels. They seem to be reducing and people aren't being replaced, and I'm particularly concerned about the pressure on some officers that they carried on stoically and not actually said anything to me. But it's just something which I do feel concerned about, that people may be working under extreme pressure. I did speak to Mr Small about this, and it seems that there isn't really much we can do about it at the moment because of the budget constraints, but it is a concern. But I would like to, not sure if congratulate is the right word, but I think our officers are doing a good job under the circumstances. I don't know if Mr Small would like to comment on that.
No, thank you, Chair. As members will probably be aware, and we'll touch upon later on, I think under the budgetary control item, the council is under a financial strain, really, one way or another, and staff make up a sizable proportion of the overall budgets of the council. So it's, we need to look at how we can rein our spending back in, and staff and vacancy is one of those ways to do that. So I think it's probably likely that we'll retain a level of vacancy and be under the establishment, and then at points in time we'll probably try and capture that to try and balance the budgets. I think I did say to you, Chair, yesterday, one of the things that we need to be mindful of, though, is rather than heaping more pressure on the staff that are still within the council, we need to think of ways of how we can either be more efficient, which I think has to be the preference really, so we can deliver the same services within the same, within the number of staff that we have, a reduced number of staff, or to reduce the services that we offer as a council so that the staff that we do have can provide an adequate level of service to the best of their ability. So I think it's an ongoing challenge, and I think we'll probably touch upon it as we talk about the budget item later on in year, and of course the medium-term financial plan refresh as well. So I'm sure we'll touch upon it under that.
Okay, thank you. If we can go on to item 7, which is public questions and requests to address the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I take it we haven't had any.
No, Chair, no requests.
Executive calling decisions is item 8, which I haven't had any of those either.
That's correct, Chair.
Now, I think as we get into perhaps the particular items on the agenda, I've been asked to bring actually agenda item 14 forward. So I think if the committee's in agreement with that, and it's actually on the supplementary paper that you've got, so we need to go to that first, and that's the corporate plan for 2023 to 24, and it's the first quarter performance report. It's on pages 28 to 58, or sorry, 56. So I'm going to ask one of the officers, I'm just trying to find the right page, to take us through that. Yes, it would have been Peter Charman, but it's actually Julian Lewis, who I believe is... Charlotte Graham. Yes, but sorry, is Charlotte there on the internet? All right, Charlotte, can you take us through this?
Yes, Bobby. So we're starting from page 30 of the corporate performance report.
Yep.
I just wanted to advise that when the corporate performance report was submitted, we didn't at that moment in time have the KPI data from planning. That has subsequently been provided to me, but I was only in receipt of it today. So I can provide a verbal update on that, but it won't be included within the report that's within the agenda pack itself. Okay, so jumping on to, so if I start at page 30, just wait a second.
Yeah, I think perhaps if we go through it page by page, and if members have got any queries, they can indicate, and you can answer their queries, hopefully.
Absolutely. I'll do my best. If I'm not able to answer any of the questions, then I'll take notes from this meeting. I will come back with the answers. Right. And obviously I'm on the screen, so I can't have visibility of everybody that's in the chamber. So please let me know if anybody raises their hand.
Yeah, okay. We'll keep a look out for them. So do you want to start on page 31?
I'll start on page 31. Do we have any questions around the update that's provided on page 31?
Apparently not. So, no? Page 32.
I'll jump to page 32, which is a continuation of page 31.
Yeah. And I think likewise with page 33, is that the case? Don't appear to have any questions for page 32. Page
33 then jumps onto the next update through the housing and asset management system. So if there are any questions at all on that?
Right.
No.
So moving on to page 34.
Page 34.
No. No. Page 35. No.
No, okay. Page 36, which is a continuation of page 35. And actually runs through onto page 37 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on page?
Yeah, Councillor Murray has got a question.
Yeah, I read this and everything seems fine. So do I take it from this that the Cabinet and the portfolio holder is happy that everything is on track for us to have a smooth transition from our current contractor to the new setup, because it's such a frontline service. It's the transition has got to be as smooth and as frictionless as it's possible to manage.
You want me to come back on that one? So unfortunately we don't have James Warwick. I know he was unavailable to attend the meeting today. So the waste management programme and the leisure centre programme are both being managed quite closely at the moment. As you're right, they are significantly large and high priority projects. We've put some quite clear and strong governance around both of those to ensure that the project has the correct level of resourcing needs on it, that it's being assured, quality assured correctly, and there are steps in place to make sure that that's managed. I believe the relationship that the waste team currently has at the moment with the vendors and through the procurement process is working well, and there are not any issues that I'm aware of that would raise concern around that.
Okay, I think Councillor Balcomb's got something to say on this.
Well, I think Charlotte said everything actually. Yes, everything's on target at the moment and moving along quite nicely.
Okay, so if we can move on, I think on page 37, Charlotte, is that correct? I'm losing track.
We're at page 38.
Sorry, page 38.
Page 38, so that's around M3PP, if there's any questions at all. Nope, okay,
No.
lovely. That continues through page 39, so the next page would be page 40, which is around the omni-channel customer contact experience. That was previously known as our telephony project.
Okay.
And actually, celebrating success on that one, that actually went live last week.
Right. Okay.
If I continue on to that continues through page 41, so the next page for reference would be page 42.
Okay. Nobody seems to have any questions on that.
Okay. Again, that goes through to page 43, and that's the end of the progress updates against the key priority corporate projects. So if I move down to page 44, that is the start of the KPI reporting data. Does anybody have any questions at all around the data that's on page 44?
Yeah, my...
Councillor Murray in the weekend, myself.
Right. Councillor Murray, you've got some questions coming up. First one from Councillor Murray.
I have. I just think it might be useful for the officers to just remind us. I think I'm clear in my mind. What period of time do each of these quarters cover? Can you just remind us and clarify that? Because that's running through the whole section of this report. I think that might just be useful.
Of course. So our quarters aligned with the financial year. So quarter one would represent April, May and June, and quarter two, which is what this report refers to, is July, August and September.
Yeah.
Microphone.
I'm still a little bit concerned.
Slightly
I thought I turned myself on. I'm still a little bit concerned then the quarter two is running as high as this in terms of, or as badly as this in terms of overall customer satisfaction. Because I'm not picking that up in my ward, which is good. I mean, we had a horrendous time when it was really poor. Is this a particular part of the district, or is this the contractor realising it's not getting the new contract, or what's the explanation around this customer satisfaction level in quarter two? Because the overall impression I've had is that it's been okay, and from a Loughton perspective and my ward, Councillor Brooks's as well, doesn't seem to have been a particular problem. So this did surprise me when I read this.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I think it's probably appropriate if I passed over to Rob Havey on this one, if that's okay with you, Rob.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Murray. I don't have an answer for you. What I will do is I will go back and get the data analysed and come back with an explanation for you around how that is broken down and if it is affecting a particular area of the district, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Nowicki.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just want to get a clarification here in terms of the target setting. I've got, I might be getting this wrong, but I've seen here the target setting for Q1 and Q2 at 45%, and the actual is 69%. Can you clarify why 45% as the target?
Yes, I'll come that one. The target is, in fact, so like that should be 70%, should be the target, and we'll ensure that that's corrected for future reports. That's the target for this financial year, to achieve 70%, and obviously as systems develop, we gradually increase that target so more people get first point resolution, if that helps.
Yeah, I'm just, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's been reported elsewhere, actually. It's in the, it was reported earlier. If you look through the actions, it should be 70%, so it has been reported before.
I'll take that action back as well, Chair, and look at the data that's capturing too, and just make sure that the targets throughout all of our KPIs are the correct targets that should be in the report. So I'll review all of those collectively as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Going on from that point, if it's reaching 69.3 at the moment, surely it's opportunity to put it up to 80, not 70.
Well, I think I can only ask Rob Pavey to comment on that. Do you think it should be higher than 70%?
At the moment, that's what we thought was achievable within the systems and resources we have, but obviously we're kept under constant review. We want it to be a challenging target. So yes, I mean 80% would be where we'd like to maybe have our next target setting to be. But for this financial year, it was set at 70%. I'll take Councillor Hadley's comments on board. So
the targets are set each year, are they, and not reviewed during the year?
That's what tends to happen. I'm correct, Charlotte, in that context, am I?
That is correct. So the targets are set, are there for a year, and they're not reviewed throughout the year to change those targets. However, as reported in the last overview and scrutiny, we are actually doing a piece of work at the moment to look at the whole context of this report. So both the progress updates that we provide, but in addition to that, how we are presenting our management information data, our MI data, which is at the moment through the KPIs. But we are looking at opportunities on how we can better utilise data sets that do exist within the council at the moment, but also where there are areas where we would really benefit from understanding a little bit more around the data that we are able to get hold of, and how we can then use that to provide information back into certain forums, such as overview and scrutiny. We have agreed that we will continue that piece of work with the view that that will be ready for the new municipal year, and that is something that I'm actively working on, and a couple of other officers are as well. So while these KPIs are as they are at the moment, we do absolutely expect that that will hopefully change in the new municipal year, and we will have a better data set that's easier to interpret and understand as well. So that is something we are working on to make improvements around.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McIver's got a question.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Charlotte, for this report, and Rob. I just had a question, really. I mean, I feel like I ask this often, but I feel as though there could be confusion here as to what our residents are actually being asked to kind of review when we're looking at this data, and also, you know, there's a real difference between sort of customer experience, customer services, and then customer satisfaction. It is quite a blurred area, but, you know, are people unhappy with the way that their complaint is being dealt with, or their query is being dealt with, or are they unhappy with the outcome? For example, if you don't like Ride London and you phone the council to moan about Ride London, you're probably still not like Ride London at the end. So are you unhappy because the person at the end of the phone hasn't said, oh, thank you, Mr. Smith, for your concern, we've just cancelled it on your behalf? So my question really is about what are we actually asking our customers to sort of review? Because I feel with particular concern been raised previously about staffing levels within the call centre, if there's a target of 80% and there tracking quarter after quarter significantly lower than the target. My concern really here is for the welfare of the teams that are taking this call. The motivation must be horrendous when you're constantly dealing with matters that are out of your control and you're being penalised in a feedback session, in terms of the data that's coming through. So I just have a concern really on the morale basis, but also the accuracy of the data that we're getting. I think that, looking at this, you think it's in the red, it's significantly below, but actually have all of those calls been handled really, really well, and we're simply dealing with people that can't be pleased? And if that's the case, may I suggest that perhaps, I assume a lot of these calls are recorded, we could maybe see some of the examples of the calls that our teams are receiving, so we can actually hear what residents are saying, how they're being treated. And I imagine, working in customer service myself, and councillors receive communications all the time, I bet some of these calls are absolutely horrendous, and then the person on the phone is being really polite, really professional, and because the person's not getting the outcome they wanted, they're getting, a negative feedback. So I just think there's a bit of due diligence here in terms of our staff welfare to actually, for this committee to see a bit more of what they're having to deal with.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the negative comments tend to be about not how their call's been handled, but the service that they're dealing with, and obviously, as you say, not being able to give the answer they want because of circumstances such as the waste issue we've experienced. There is a piece of work. What the new telephone system will enable us to do, not right now, but in the near future, is to look at customer satisfaction collection in a different way, and we are going to be undertaking a piece of work around customer feedback, and I think I would like to see something come back to this committee on how we deal with all this data that comes in presented to you, so you can, so it's less opaque, shall I say, because it's a bit of a blunt statistic. I take your point there, and I think there is a piece of work that's coming up to pull all customer feedback together, and customer satisfaction is a part of that. We obviously are concerned about our team's welfare, but it tends, on the complaints that we get, it's not how they're being handled. I think pretty much on the whole, our team do a fantastic job in handling those calls. It tends to be a product of the service that the customers had for the need to call in. So if you leave that with us, Councillor MacGyver, I'll see that a bit of work comes forward for the committee's consideration in the future.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, Rob. And a second point really is sort of what Councillor Hadley mentioned in terms of targets. I think we should aim for 100% satisfaction with customer service, of course. However, if we are looking at these reports, they seem to consistently be in the red. And from what you're saying, and certainly from what I've personally experienced, that is an unfair sort of outcome. Is there possible, looking at the data and looking at how it's tracked in, the last, certainly since I've been elected as a councillor, is it worth perhaps reviewing the target for overall satisfaction, particularly because at the moment, as you said, it is quite a blurred accuracy on that. I just think, not just for staff morale, but also just for fairness to the team, that actually, if we look at historically the percentages we're getting, in my head, I'm thinking something like 50% might feel a bit more reasonable, and perhaps something we could look to then increase as technologies and other things begin to come into play.
Yeah, I think it's as much looking about how we capture customer satisfaction, because obviously people, if they're given options, sometimes will lead towards a negative, if you know what I mean, in terms of, rather than saying a great experience. So we need to try and get a better collection of the broader customer satisfaction of council services as well. I think that's what the piece of work is, because you can have a silent majority or silent minority, or whatever you want to pitch it, who are generally satisfied with how their service is being received, or do not comment back. So I think it's a look at the whole area of customer feedback is a piece of work that I'd like to see brought to the committee in the future.
Okay, so Councillor Hadley.
Thanks, Chair. Agreeing with Councillor MacIver, it is a blurred measure, this overall satisfaction. Excuse me, but it can be cut down more granular if we look at the time to pick up the phone, the time to respond how long you keep the person on the phone, and that can be done. It's been being done for years. Do we have
Yes,
those
we do
figures?
that. Yes,
And if not, why
we do
not?
that. We do have all those figures. It's a key part of the management of the performance of the team to ensure we've got enough people on the phone, and we can obviously see who's answering and whatever. So if there are issues in a particular area, we can measure all times and all responses and how long people are on the phone for, etc. So we do have all that data. The new system will give us a whole different level of data that we haven't had before. So it's one of the advantages of the new system. It will give the team a greater transparency over call journeys, etc. as well.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Sam Kane wants to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, it's worth remembering that when somebody phones up the council looking for advice, very often it's because they're already disgruntled. They are unhappy about something. What they don't phone up is to phone up to say, well done, you've done a fantastic service. They don't do that. So you're never going to get your 100% satisfaction in terms of outcome because they come to the council with a grievance. In some instances, we can satisfy that and give them a reasonable response and a reasonable outcome, but not always, because some people have unreasonable expectations of what the council can do. So you're never going to achieve your 100% satisfaction. What we can look to do with the new system is measure how well we've responded, because that is something very different. My customer services team is working well and dealing with customer complaints or customer queries properly. That should be a measure, and outcomes a completely different thing.
Yeah.
That's just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, I think you wanted to speak. You had a virtual hand up.
I did. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add on to what Rob has already mentioned and Councillor Kane has articulated as well. We do have the new system in now, which went live last week, and through the new system we will be able to have a different level of data that, as Rob said, we've not had before. But I just wanted to address what Councillor McIver had mentioned. So part of the work that we're doing is to, I think, addresses some of the issues and concerns that you've raised and other members have too, is about how we can better understand our data and how we can better represent that in forums like this. So I just wanted to give assurance that the areas that you've raised are areas that we've also raised internally as well, and realise our gaps and areas for opportunities for improvement, and we are working through that process at the moment to see how we can better that. So I do believe that when the new municipal year comes along and we're able to present a new type of report into this forum, I think it will give you a greater understanding, a better understanding of kind of the questions that you're asking now.
Okay, Councillor Brooks.
I've worked a MyTel system for several years, and I know one of the comments Mr. Small made to me quite a while ago is it wasn't particularly suited to hybrid working where you've got quite a number of staff working at home. And I just wondered if the new system is better.
Like I said, the new system, yeah, it's great. I mean, it was obviously would have been in the specification that we presented to the company, and it's receiving good feedback at the moment from people using it, which is good to hear.
I know that it's better for an organisation if more people use the online service, but I think there are always going to be people that choose to have a conversation, and there'll always still be a small minority that will need to speak to a person.
Okay. Charlotte, I think we don't think any more questions tonight, but I think we were on page 44, so actually can continue.
Absolutely. If I move through to page 45, are there any questions at all on the KPI data within page 45?
There don't appear to be, no.
Okay. If I move further down into page 46.
Councillor Murray has got a question.
Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure there's anyone on the call that will be able to answer, but I think it's worth flagging up. Quarter 2, number of homelessness approaches. I mean, 302 is still too many, but it's better than the same quarter last year, so that needs to be acknowledged. These are factors outside our control. These are approaches. These aren't how we deal with them. These are approaches. And I was pleasantly surprised to read that, because given everything we're told about the impact of mortgages and issues around the private rental sector, I thought that might be worse than last year. So is that kind of a quirk, or is it the lull before the storm? Or if we've got a housing person on the call, would they anticipate we're just seeing a delay in the number of approaches? Because a lot of authorities are saying that it's a number of homelessness approaches are going up quite dramatically. So I just wondered if there was someone on the call who could tell us, you know, why good news now, and are we likely to get worse news in other quarters? Thank you, Chairman.
Right, I'm not sure if Charlotte wants to come back on that, but Councillor Holly Whitbread wants to speak, so perhaps...
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for that question. And I will ask officers to provide a more technical response. But what I would say from my weekly conversations with officers is we have experienced a high level of homelessness in line with other councils across the county and indeed across the country, and temporary accommodation remains a huge pressure. So we have seen that slight lull. I think partly down to the work we've done around homelessness prevention, and we have made it a real priority of the housing team to really focus on prevention and discover new ways of doing that and working with people in the early stages. But what I would say is that we do anticipate this to be a difficult time in the coming weeks and months with the economy as it is. So I suppose it's a figure that we watch, but we do everything we can to help people avoid homelessness. But like everywhere in the country, we're feeling the pressure, and I think that those figures are fortunate, but there's still a lot of concerning things to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, did you want anything to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I can add anything other than what Councillor Holly Whitbread has already said. However, in line with that, I will take the action back to speak to the officers to understand a more technical response to that, which I'll feed back into the actions and the minutes for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. So I think we move on to page 47, if there's any questions on that.
Yeah. Any questions at all on page 47?
No, don't appear to be.
Okay, if I move through to page 48.
Yep. No, don't appear to be any questions.
No, okay. Page 49.
No questions.
Okay, page 50.
No, don't appear to be any questions either.
Okay, page 51.
No, can't see any hands raised.
Page 52. I understand, though, this, however, was the area where I only received the KPI data for this earlier today, and unfortunately it was just due to annual leave within the team. I can pull that data up if that would be helpful. Be better in a second.
But whereabouts is that, Charlotte?
So this is around the KPIs around planning.
Oh, I see.
So this,
okay.
So for planning.
There's a question from Councillor Brooks.
It is really, and I suppose it's perhaps less about the KPR than, because I have had moans from people about this new policy of suddenly wanting a rent up in advance a month. Was this done, which is fine for people who are starting a tenancy, but just some old ladies given a shock saying they're feeling behind. Was this done so we can get a bit more coffers, money in the coffers, to put it bluntly? I mean, to help us. I know that this is, you'd be paying 2 months in advance at least, plus a lot more in a private sector house.
Is that one you can answer, Charlotte?
I unfortunately don't have the detail or the skill set behind that to answer that question. I'm just trying to see who else is on the call. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the right officer to attend. I can go back to obtain some more information and actually feed that directly back if that would be useful.
I think it would be, because I've had queries about this. It seems to have taken people by surprise. And it doesn't seem to have been very well explained to them when they've asked questions about it. So I think we do need to get a bit more information about this.
Absolutely. I'll take them all back to and look to get an answer as a priority on that one and come back with a direct answer rather than necessarily wait for the minutes to be sent out. So if you could leave that one with me, and I'll look to try and get something out by the end of this week to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We were on page 52, so we're on 53 now.
Just staying on page 52, because I do have the data through from planning. So the first one around the percentage of applications determined within the agreed timeframes. That's for minor applications. So within that one, sorry, I've got about 5 reports open here. So that one was 100%. Oh no, not for minors. For majors, we were at 100%. For minors, we were 81.4% for Q2. And for other, we were at 84%. I don't know if there's any questions at all on those.
So are you saying that these figures need to be revised?
So when we submitted the report, we didn't have the data for Q2. We had the targets, but we didn't have the data, which is why it says data not available. And I received that data earlier today, but we didn't have that data because of annual leave. Yeah. So that's the verbal one, the verbal data I was able to give. But I can update this report now based upon that and resend it out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure who was first. Councillor Weekey, or was it Councillor Kane?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, are you saying that we're not meeting our targets in terms of the figures you just provided now, covering the data now available? And if that's the case, is there an explanation why we're not meeting those targets?
Do you want me to come in on that?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, absolutely.
Hi there, so Planning Service Director. Charlotte's correct. Unfortunately, I was on leave the last couple of weeks when information was requested. So on the major planning applications, we're doing exceedingly well. We've hit 100%. We only get a small proportion of all the planning applications are major applications. So we're hitting the target on that. The target was 80%. We're on 100%. On the minor applications, and the definition of that is under Q1 in the commentary. So that's basically planning applications from 1 to 9 dwellings as an example. We've slightly improved in Q2 at 81.4%, but the target is 90%, so we are below that. And on the what we call the other applications, which is the main bulk of the planning applications we receive, so they tend to be household or extensions. Our target's 90%, and we're on 84% for Q2. So we are going down from where we were at Q1. We were 88%. So if you want to, so the reasons for that, let's start with that other one from 88 to 84%. We have had some staff leave in the last couple of months, which hasn't helped matters. We've had annual leave and we've also got a couple of vacancies, so that does tend to affect our performance. And on the minor one, where we've gone up from 80% to 81.4%, that's a slight improvement, but we're still under the performance on that. Yeah, I can take any further questions on that, but they are challenging performances, as Councillor Hadley heard say earlier, about increasing targets. Our targets are pretty high at 90%, so it is quite a challenge for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if it's Councillor Helen Kane or Councillor...
Or what is Councillor Helen Kane?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Right, I have a specific, I'm not going to mention it, but I've got a specific case that is going backwards and forwards for 3 years now and with no decision. So which category would you put that one, please? Is there a minus per category at all?
I think I know the one you're talking about, so that would be a major planning application. So the case you're describing is quite complicated, and as you say, that's probably the longest running planning application we've got at present. My understanding is that's coming to a planning area, Plans West, very, very soon. We could still achieve the target, believe it or not, despite it being in for nearly 3 years, if the applicant's agent agrees to an extension of time. We have to get their agreement to do that, but if they agree to a new date, then it could well mean that it does get decided in time.
Okay, Councillor Murray.
I think Mr Richardson may have inadvertently answered the question I was going to ask there, because I like to try and understand what I'm looking at, and each of these uses the phrases within agreed timelines, which I'm assuming means the timelines you've agreed with the applicants, because that may therefore be longer than the normal legal timelines. Is that my understanding of agreed timelines? Because we're talking about major and minor, is where you've agreed a timeline with the applicant. So these are likely to be probably just as likely to be above or maybe sometimes below the legal timeline. Is that understanding correct?
Yeah, it is, Councillor Murray. In fact, it's a combination of those that we, so to make it clear, minors and other category applications, but when a planning application is registered, we should try and deal with them within 8 weeks. That's quite a challenge, actually. And when I say agree, that means issuing the decision notice. But the major planning applications have a slightly longer period of time, so the statutory period is 13 weeks. From receipt until when we issue the decision. Quite a number of major planning applications though have something called a Section 106 legal agreement attached to it. So it's a real challenge to get any major step within 13 weeks, and that's the same across the country. But what the government did roughly probably 10, 11 years ago now, they allowed for the applicant's agent to negotiate a new time beyond the 8 weeks or the 13 weeks, and we are allowed to include the extended new time in these categories, so long as we hit the extended new time target, and that's agreed on all returns that we make to central government. So yeah, so it's a mixture of those two things, Councillor Murray.
Okay. Councillor Capital.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is sort of following on from a question asked by Councillor Murray and the response given by Mr Richardson, but looking at this 8 and 13 week target period, which you're saying is set by the government in terms of what their expectations are, and we're aiming to achieve 90%. But how does that compare nationally, like with other local authorities or those in the Essex area? Do we do any benchmarking against what they're achieving and look to see any examples of good practice that we can take on board where local authorities are overachieving?
Well, you've it's on a very good subject, because currently officers are looking at the transformation of the planning service. What you will find is particularly in Essex, they have fewer planning committees, they have fewer members who sit on planning committees, and more decisions are made at delegated level. Because once a planning application goes to a planning committee, it's almost impossible to achieve the statutory 8 or 13-week target. So a way forward would be to improve our decision making and turnaround times if we had fewer committees and we had greater delegated powers. And that's what quite a lot of authorities have done that.
Okay, thank you. I don't appear to be any more questions on that, so can we move on, Charlotte?
We can. Okay, so if I move into page 53, are there any questions for page 53 at all?
Yes, Councillor Nweke.
Thank you, Chairman. Just picking up on the statement here about the number of employees remaining unwilling to disclose their ethnicity information. However, people team will continue to run publicity. My question here is, I'm a bit worried why people will be reluctant to disclose their ethnicity. Is it down to the culture in the council, or has there been an environment not conducive for people to be happy to disclose their identity?
I'll pass over, thank you, Councillor. I'll pass over to Paula McGuinness on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for that question. We haven't had any evidence to say that people the culture of the organisation is of a nature that stops people from completing our data that's held on our HR and payroll system, but we do find that there's some resistance. We would hope that our culture is inclusive and allows for people to complete that data, but we've not had any feedback that says one way or the other, unfortunately. But we do send out regular reminders. Our last publicity campaign was last year, and looking at this date here, it does look like we're in line to do some follow-up work. But we just find it quite difficult to get 100% returns on that information when we publicise for it.
Okay. Councillor McIver has a question.
Thank you, Chairman. In light of recent events internationally, but also just generally when major matters happen, whether that's in relation to certain countries, certain religions, does this data get used to target support to employees that may need it?
Well, we haven't recently, Councillor, used that data to do that. We do publish a wide range of wellbeing support for all of our staff, regardless, and that's open to anybody to have access to. It's not particularly targeted in that way.
Councillor Nweke.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to come back on that first question I asked, because it's encouraging that you continue to push for people to come forward. And my question really is, if the approach we've been using is not successful, are we considering different approaches, different ways of getting people to be comfortable where they work, to be happy to disclose their identity or what their cultural preference?
I think that is absolutely a good comment, a valid comment to make, and I'll certainly take that back to the people team. So when we do another publicity, we think about that and think about doing it differently. Like you say, if we're not getting a successful result, we probably need to think of a different way. So absolutely, so I will take that back.
Oh, Councillor, well, not the Councillor actually, Chief Executive Georgina.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly not a councillor. So I just to interject, there is, and I think Paul a really good answer, but the approach across the organisation for diversity, inclusion, and equality has certainly, in my mind, stepped up. So, and we are seeing results of that. If councillors have walked the building, you will see Black History Month being celebrated around the building. And we have a number of groups, not run by management, but run by staff who are interested informing and being with like-minded people or people who wish to join groups to learn more. So I would, from my perspective, say that we are making good strides. And I know you asked a question at a previous meeting recently around how we're supporting different groups, and there's been action taken, which I'm really pleased to report back.
Okay. Can we move on then, Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. So if I move on to page 54, are there any questions at all on page 54?
No, not prepared for any questions.
Okay, and then moving on to page 55.
Yeah, Councillor Murray.
It's on staff turnover, and the reason I wanted to ask a question is I had to find somewhere on the agenda to ask it, and this seems the right place. I follow the Epping Forest District Council Facebook page quite carefully, and anecdotally, because I haven't kind of measured it every time I've read it, there does appear to have been quite a lot of re-advertising for posts or extension of application deadlines that I've noticed. It's not something I've noticed in the past, and I just wondered if recruitment for posts is difficult at the moment, because there certainly does seem to have been a number of occasions for posts where that's happening. It's a re-advertising or it's an extension of the original deadline for application. So what is recruitment like at the moment when we need to, you know, there are posts that we need to refill if people leave?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Yes, the labour market is very, very tight for the public sector, not just for local government, but across the public sector. And we are seeing that in our recruitment processes. And we try different ways of advertising. We are looking at different ways for advertising, using different methods. We are working across other organisations, shared services being part of that, to offer applicants different types of roles with different opportunities and different career paths. So we are trying to overcome that by working collaboratively with other organisations and just trying to do things differently. But yes, like most other organisations in the public sector, we are finding difficulties with recruiting to a number of roles.
And this might be for the Chief Executive Officer or for the Leader of Council or for Paula, I don't know which. Without naming them, because I don't think that would be appropriate, are there posts at the moment within the authority that we are finding difficulty to fill, that we're actually really concerned about? You know, they're kind of key posts and we're not able to effectively fill them at the moment. Are there any such posts such as that?
We have for a number of years, so it's not just a recent issue with planners, but there's a tightness across a number of professions that we experience from time to time, and it is about using different methods, so not just going direct advertising, but we can use agencies and consultancies to find staff, not necessarily to employ them on that status, but just use a wide range of methods of recruitment. But certainly planners are one of the areas that comes to mind. Again, that's not just for Epping Forest District Council, that is across the profession, and it has been like that for a number of years.
Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And I think interesting discussion around staffing always. But of course, we've always had an issue in Epping Forest with recruitment retention because of our drag into the London markets as well. But I think particularly post-pandemic, a lot of people have reassessed their lives. And that means there's a real shortage in key areas of quality staff. We always put a great pride in the quality of staff that we get here at Epping Forest, and of course the staff are the lifeblood of any authority, so it's very important to us. As Ms McGuinness said, there are people out there, there's a lot of interim people available, but of course that costs more money, and we always like to have our own people here. And of course our apprenticeship scheme has been very successful over the years, and we are looking and working with other councils as well, because if you can't just employ them for Epping Forest, then maybe there's something you do on a more shared service basis with other authorities, and we've had discussions with a lot of local authorities about that possible situation. But I don't think we should underestimate the challenge, and I don't think it will go away anytime soon. It seems to have been here the 25 years I've been here, and I'm sure Councillor Murray will agree. Getting and keeping good quality staff in all areas is always an issue.
Thank you. Well, is there any more questions on that one, Charlotte? So perhaps we can move on.
Thank you, Chair. So actually we're on the last page now, which is page 56. Are there any questions at all about page 56?
There is a question indeed from my Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paula, for the report. I just had a question, really. I think I have asked this previously, and I don't think it's for the Parent Scrutiny Committee to go into detail on staff sickness at all, but I do think it would be very useful for us to be aware of the long-term sickness versus the shorter-term sicknesses. There is a huge difference, and I think that's a trend that ought to be sort of tracked and monitored. You know, if you've got a greater number of people on long-term sickness, is that because as an organisation we're not being flexible enough in them being able to come back, changing departments perhaps temporarily whilst they have an individual has a matter to resolve? So I think that would be really useful. And also on that note, whether there is a significant number of mental well-being that's a factor in sickness, and if there is any link potentially to that being work-related. For example, if somebody's in a department where they're pushed and it's a certain period of time when that department is overstretched for whatever reason, 2 or 3 people in a team are on maternity, that can have an effect on people. So I think it would be very useful to have a bit more detail. The text is a little bit vague on that. And I just also wondered, just so I'm understanding the data right, from what I'm looking at, does that look like on average there's 6 to 7 days sickness per year per employee? Because I'm just looking at it quarterly. I just wanted to check I'm right with that assumption.
Yes, that's right, Councillor. Based on these numbers, and it will vary. So the actual target number of days we reduced on the basis of looking from the previous 2 years, and I think previously it was something like 2.15. So sickness absence has reduced. We certainly do record mental health, reasons for mental health, and that is split between work-related and non-work-related. So we can look at that. And just going back to Charlotte's point earlier on in her presentation, we from the data that we provide at the moment for the committee's consideration will be reviewed to actually bring to members what's useful for them to understand, in that if that information is part of that, we can feed that into the review. So when we're ready for the municipal year, next municipal year, that information can be included, and we can have some detailed commentary if that's what it is that you're after. That is not a problem. We can do that.
Okay, I have a question from Councillor Anika Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I remember a while back, or I might be getting a little bit confused, but we used to get a measure previously on the number of vacancies throughout the organisation, and also how many of those vacancies were being covered by agency staff or locum or consultants even. If we're looking at new measures, I don't know whether that's still being recorded, but perhaps that's something we can consider moving forward.
Paula, can you enlighten us on that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chairman. We would, I think the intention, and Charlotte will tell me if this is not correct, that obviously we'll bring a new suite of KPIs to this committee to get signed off, because this does need to be meaningful for the committee. So if that is an area that members are interested in, we do have that information. Quite happy to supply that.
So perhaps we could have that in the future report?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And apologies, Chairman, I mean, some of this may not be, because these are KPIs, and I think that the discussion will be around data sets and providing information for members, and then there could be other KPIs, so that there is a difference between a data set and a KPI, and I think that whatever it is that comes before the committee, it will be for members to sign that off.
Okay, there's a virtual hand up from Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paula. It's just adding on to what you've just said, Paula. I think you kind of preempted what I was going to say around the difference between KPIs and data sets. So KPIs are absolutely something that measure performance, and something we should have targets that we review on a regular basis and don't stagnate throughout the year. They don't necessarily stay the same. But we're also conscious that there is just some really good data and information that we are able to capture within the council, and it's really helpful and insightful, and ultimately will help support and drive change throughout the organisation. So the proposal that we want to come back to this forum with is, yes, it will absolutely still cover a number of KPIs, because they're really important for our organisation, but we also want to be able to present just some really good information which we hope will promote discussion and help us drive change throughout the organisation. So the report that we redesign will absolutely look at both elements of that, as well as continuing to provide progress around some of our key priority projects that we have within the council as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I think, unless there are any other questions, I think that concludes item 14 on the agenda, but I'd like to thank our officers for their input, and the councillors as well. Lots of questions there, and it's quite informative. Took up more time than I expected. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Right, members, I think we have to return to the main agenda now, and it's item 9, which is on pages 13 to 21. It's a local council tax support scheme 2024 to 2025, and I think we've got Mr. Julian Lewis on hand to answer any questions virtually if they arise.
Councillor,
Councillor.
Sorry, Chair, I'll be introducing the report initially, and I'll hand over to Julian for some further comment, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Okay. The report before you is a proposed new council tax support scheme for 24-25, which is a radical departure from the current scheme, which has been in place for around 10 years now. The current scheme is overly complex, and customers or potential claimants cannot easily understand their entitlement. It's equally complex and burdensome to administer as well. On that basis, many councils recently have been moving to a banded scheme, which is far simpler for claimants to understand and much easier for them to work out their entitlement, their claims. Their entitlement doesn't change because of small income differences. And as a result of that, it's much more efficient for us to administer, which leads to obviously other benefits. Banded scheme has been modelled with this authority. Julian Lewis takes much of the credit for this, but the modelling was done to keep the cost of the scheme within its existing cost envelope, and to minimise the number of losses, because every change to a scheme you're going to get winners and losers, and so the modelling was trying to minimise the effect of those. The details of the scheme are contained in the report as a result of the modelling, And the next stage, once we've completed that, was to enter into public consultation, which has concluded. It concluded last Thursday, included key stakeholders as well, such as Citizens Advice. And of the 103 responses we got back, I'm pleased to say 76 were in favour of the new banded scheme, 15% were against, 9% had no preference. So 3/4 of respondents were in favour of the banded scheme. One consideration we have taken out of the consultation was around what we had originally not included child benefit, or child benefit would not be disregarded in terms of income. This did prove a contentious issue during the consultation, and having researched this, seen across other similar schemes, child benefit is disregarded in most other schemes. So in consultation with Cabinet last night at the executive briefing, this was discussed, and the Cabinet report will be updated. It's an additional recommendation to disregard child benefit income going forward. So this will make the scheme much fairer, and also you'll see when Julian Lewis presents some of the findings of the modelling, it actually reduces the number of losers in the scheme. So on that basis, I'd like to hand over to Julian now to take you through some of the key aspects of what we've found out.
Right.
Julian, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. It's important to emphasise, I think, for everybody that the changes that we're proposing apply to working age only, and this does not affect pensioners at all. It's a national scheme for pensioners, and they won't be affected by these changes. So at the moment we have just over 3,000 working age claims in receipt of local council tax support at a cost of just over 3 million per year. The challenge that we had, I think, was, as Rob has said, was to find a scheme that was simple to administer and easy for customers to understand, but at the same time was cost neutral, because the aim of it was not to reduce the amount of money that we were paying into the community in terms of helping people with their council tax. So we did extensive modelling. We consulted with other authorities in Essex, and we wanted as well to maintain some kind of continuity throughout the county in terms of what we were producing. So we were influenced by the scheme that Basildon had introduced some years ago, and also by the scheme that Rochford introduced in 2022 as well. So effectively, our scheme is very, very similar to those. And also we have consulted with Colchester and Braintree, who are proposing to go with a banded scheme as well from April 2024. And our scheme will be, if accepted, will be very, very similar to Colchester's and Braintree's scheme. The aim, again, was to produce something that was simple to understand and clear. At the moment, it takes some time to tell somebody what they might be entitled to under the council tax support scheme. And what we were anxious to do is to get something that was really transparent for people. And if I can just share a slide with you, just bear with me. Hopefully I can bring this up for you, and it will give you. This slide is actually on page 18 of the agenda as well. So if it's not that clear when I present, then I'm hoping now that at some point you'll be able to see this.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so at the moment, if somebody contacts us and asks us how much they would get in terms of local council tax support, it really is, you're going to have to claim in order to get a decision It's a highly complicated means-tested benefit scheme, and what we wanted to do is to simplify this. I mean, this is an example of something that would be on our website. It stands behind the calculation process, and you can see that it's based on household type and it's based on an income band. And quite simply, you will fall into one of these household types, and if you read across in terms of your weekly income, and wherever it meets, you'll see the percentage discount that you would receive under the council tax support scheme. So we also were anxious to protect those people who are severely disabled. So you can see at the bottom, so long as a person or a family's income is below the threshold of £400, if they are severely disabled, they will still receive the maximum support that we're offering under the scheme. The bands are 75%, 50% and 25% for the scheme. The issue we had in terms of cost neutrality was around the income that we were taking into account for families, and the child benefit proved to be the contentious issue. We tried to get the scheme to be as cost neutral as possible, and we included child benefit on some of our modelling initially, and that brought our potential expenditure to just under what we currently spend on our council tax support scheme for working age people. This slide gives you an indication of the difference between including child benefit as income and disregarding child benefit as income. So on the left we have the scheme, or the effect of the scheme, I suppose, if child benefit is included as income, and on the right hand side when it's disregarded. The new recommendation is to disregard child benefit as income, and I think these stats probably show why it's a new recommendation. If we include the child benefit, we have 555 cases that lose out. If we disregard child benefit, that goes down to 377. Again, that's 18% of the caseload, including child benefit, 12% of cases disregarding child benefit. Again, 86 cases lose all council tax support if we include child benefit as income, as opposed to 55 cases who lose all council tax support if we disregard child benefit. These are the figures in terms of the total loss that's spread over those cases, financial loss. But we can see that the average loss per case, if you like, is £8 a week. It stays at that. But overall, I think what we can say with the modelling scheme is that 88% gain under the new scheme or stay the same, don't lose any entitlement, whereas previously it was slightly less if we include child benefit as income. The modelling showed that where we include child benefit as income, we are slightly under our current expenditure, whereas if we disregard child benefit, we will go slightly over our current expenditure. And that's the trade-off really. When we were looking at modelling, this was the difficulty that we had in trying to get a cost-neutral scheme, and it comes down to these sort of fine details. So I'll stop sharing. And leave it at that at the moment, and I suppose open it up to any questions in terms of the scheme.
Yes, I think we have some questions, Julian. I'm not quite sure who was first. Councillor Murray?
Yeah, Councillor Murray's first.
I'm happy to go before Councillor Brooks. It's only councillors from Waltham Abbey. But seriously, I looked at this report really carefully because I regard this as a really important scheme for supporting our most financially disadvantaged. And most of the questions I had have been answered on that second slide. So it's really 2 comments. If I've understood correctly, the pre-cabinet meeting have agreed to disregard child benefit. I think that's absolutely the right decision. And I'm going to say something that I don't very often say, but 100% support what the pre-cabinet decision has been, and hopefully the cabinet meeting, presumably being the same people, will agree their decision at the formal meeting. So well done, Councillor Whitbread.
Who's next? Rose was next. Councillor Brooks, I think.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr Lewis. Very clear, as always. Just a couple of things, really. I remember when I didn't have a job and I got the forms some years ago to try and fill in, and I was totally overwhelmed by what information was required. And I'm sure I wasn't the only person. Do you think this system, at the moment, you implied to me a while ago that there were still quite a few people who weren't claiming, who were eligible, you thought? And do you think this will actually up the number of people applying?
Yes, potentially. I mean, that's always been the case, I think. I think nationally, with all benefits, they tend to be underclaimed. And so, you know, it wouldn't be right for us to assume that council tax support in Epping was not underclaimed. Of course it's underclaimed. And part of the reason why benefits are underclaimed may well be the benefit complexity. And this is a simple scheme. It's easy to understand for the customer. It's easy to administer. It's transparent. And I think, given that, you could expect a higher take-up of the discount. Yeah, I think that's true, Councillor Brooks. Yes. It's probably worth saying as well is that the current application form is an online process for working age people now, but the current application form can be up to 30 pages long, whereas we're looking at a new application form that does most of the work for us in terms of calculating the award. Is 2 or 3 pages for somebody to complete, and that's the key area, I think, in terms of ease of the ease that customers can understand the system, but 2, the administrative process behind it as well is much simpler, and it will give us huge benefits, I think, going forward.
Who's next? Right, so you're next. Councillor who? Oh, Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. This is obviously a big change, but yes, it does seem sensible to do this way. I would be interested if a report could come back to Commission next year to tell us how successful it's been and any lessons that have been learned. So I wonder, Chairman, if that could go on the work programme. I have 2 just short questions. Paragraph 1.15, there were some figures missing, and I had assumed those were going to be reported to us this evening, but perhaps they're not ready, and we could have them later. I suppose they'll be on the Cabinet report, so I suppose I could look there. And also, somewhere in the report, there's a reference to Appendix C, the Hardship Fund. I couldn't see that. I don't know if I just missed it. Well, I would like to see Appendix C, please, with the details of the Hardship Fund. Thank you.
If I could come back on the missing figures on 1.15, I did say them earlier, but I said them quite quickly. So, those in favour of the new scheme was 76%, and 15% were against, and 9% had no preference. That helps.
Yeah, and I've also got a breakdown of the percentages for each of the points, the elements of the scheme, and some of the positive responses were up to 98%. For some of the proposals that we were incorporating into our new scheme, there was no change that we were proposing that was less than 75% in terms of positivity, other than the proposal to include child benefit as income. It's also interesting that the Citizens' Advice have also, not only did they complete the consultation online, but they also issued a response to the proposed changes in writing. And one of the things that they were concerned about, although they were overall they were positive about the changes and liked what we wanted to do in terms of our CTS scheme, they were concerned about the idea that we were proposing to include child benefit as income. So that's why the new proposal is now to disregard child benefit as income, and that has beneficial effects for a number of claimants of council tax support.
Okay, Councillor McIver, that's a question.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the report. And like colleagues, I feel relatively supportive of this overall, and I think we should welcome simplicity in local government wherever it may find itself. My slight concern, just looking at the table just above 1.18, is particularly for single, I assume this is single parent household, or potentially, I don't want to be incorrect with that assumption, but if you've got a single household with 2 children and you're earning more than 400 a month, you are a week, sorry, you are 0%. But if you are a couple with the same number of children, you're also effectively getting the same discount. Now, my reason for querying this is that I do feel that there is a large population of single parents. When you are a single parent, you don't have the advantage of childcare. You don't have you don't have the same levels of support that a couple may have. And I just have a slight concern that, £400 per week is not, I wouldn't regard that as a high difference. The £75 difference where you go from getting 25% discount to none at all. You're talking about £75 a week here. Somebody earning £1,600 a month, if you just take a 4-week month, single with 2 children, getting the same discount as 2 parents who have the potential to work more if they wanted to. I just have a slight concern about that particular audience. This is a very niche audience of people, but it is potentially detrimental. So I just wanted to sort of stand up for that small group of people and just wonder if we could explore options, perhaps, in the way that police have delegated powers to make amends. Is there an opportunity for some of our officers to have some discretion over a discount for single parent households? Because I just think £1,600 per month or £400 a week is not a high income for an individual. And I think we also should bear in mind that because of our proximity to London, lots of people have quite significant commuting costs, which of course I assume are not factored into this. How can they be? But I just think we should just bear in mind, net income in terms of tax isn't always net income in terms of the cost of going to work. And I think if you are a single parent family with 2 children, that's twice as many school uniforms to purchase, that's twice as many children to feed. I think to have the same level of discount as a couple with 2 children is, I don't know if it feels fair. That's all.
I think, can I come in initially there, Julie? Because obviously single parents will get a 25% discount of their council tax anyway, as a single person discount. So that would give them more discount, notwithstanding other comments you made, which are perfectly valid, but just to put it into context, there would be an additional 25% discount as them being the single adult in the property, although it's a different discount to the one we're talking about today.
Yes, and if I could just come in there as well, one of the things that we were anxious to do is to give people a means of improving their circumstances without necessarily losing the discount. And with lone parents, we made the decision with the modelling to disregard child maintenance. Now, currently, there is a £15 a week disregard on child maintenance with our current scheme. But the proposal with the new scheme is to disregard child maintenance completely. And that ties in, I think, with Department for Work and Pensions policy at the moment, where they're pushing lone parents to see whether they can avail themselves of child maintenance. So there is a scheme, a national scheme, with the Department of Work and Pensions, and I think our scheme ties in quite nicely with that, in the sense that we allow then lone parents to improve their circumstances by getting child maintenance if possible, and that child maintenance is then not taken into account when we calculate the discount that they're going to get. So they're in a position where they could have an extra income and yet it not affect their discount.
Yeah, Councillor McIver would just like to come back on
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to it, particularly on the point of child maintenance. There is so many people with child maintenance arrangements that have been settled through court, and the CSA published lots of reports on how so many parents are not paying their contributions, and if they leave the country, it's virtually impossible for them to claim that money. So I think discounting child maintenance, that might be great for those that are in receipt of child maintenance, and it's scandalously low because some of these are historic arrangements that were set up 15 years ago when inflation wasn't where it is and various other factors. I just think we should be very cautious of this very niche population. I don't think it is in any way helpful, in my opinion, to say that because you get child maintenance, we won't include that. I don't think that is helpful, because the vast majority of single parents are barely in receipt of their child maintenance. That is, you look at any CSA report, it's so clear that there is a real injustice there. That's not for us to control. That's why I'm wondering whether we could explore the option of some more discretion on individual cases, whereby you've got somebody that can prove how much they have to pay to commute to work, where they can prove, obviously, that they're a single parent with 2 children. I think because of our proximity to London and how so many of our single parent residents will rely on transport, perhaps because they can't afford to have a car, especially if they're going into London, they can't afford a ULEZ compliant car. I just think there's a real niche audience here that we should be perhaps exploring a bit more of tailored support to. I don't know if we can just generically put that audience into a table.
If I agree completely, and we part of the scheme, I think Councillor Whitehouse alluded to earlier, there will be a discretionary scheme as part of our proposals, which will have a fund where we will be able to help people in individual circumstances. So I'm not sure that we could design a simple scheme, such a simple scheme, to take into account of all these nuances. But what we can do is we can provide a fund as part of that scheme to help people on a discretionary basis, based on their individual circumstances, and something like excessive travel costs, for example, to maintain their work position, for example, would certainly be one of those examples where we could use the exceptional hardship payment to assist that family.
I don't want to take up too much more time, so I can see Councillor McCann wants to speak, and I just perhaps, as a suggestion, another thing that could be considered on that discretionary fund would be if you've got a single parent, perhaps with 4 children, there's that changes things, obviously.
Yeah, point taken.
Councillor McCann and Councillor Orchard. Councillor McCann first.
Well, Councillor McCann, you've got a virtual hand up. Would you like to join us with your question?
Thank you, So, yeah, question for Mr Lewis. So thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I suppose questions around the statements made throughout the report around the reduction of the significant administrative burden. So just a question around that. So when you were doing your modelling, was there were there any kind of facts and figures around what that reduction in staff time could look like? You may not have this now, it may be something that we'll have to get in the fullness of time, but it was just good to get a sense as to, pre and post introduction of universal credit, and in terms of the current staff time allocated to obviously reviewing these number of pages, etc. Is there a sense as to what the staff time saving will be in terms of full-time equivalents at this stage?
Not very difficult to answer at the moment. What I can say is that the administrative burden on such a proposed new scheme would be significantly less. Significantly less. I mean, it's hard to put a figure on that, but you're quite right in terms of reporting back post go live in terms of what it means in terms of we may well then be able to put some kind of absolute figures on this, but at the moment it wasn't something that we did, but we do think that the administrative savings would be quite substantial.
Yeah, I think just on that, if you use the word significant, then it's a largely subjective term unless you get those facts and figures. So in the fullness of time, it'll be useful to see what the savings actually do look like.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can commit to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor who? All good. Councillor Allgood?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm desperately looking through some emails to see if I can word this correctly, but maybe one of the Armed Forces champions can actually ask it. The Armed Forces Disability Allowance, is that included in the figures, or I'm aware that they sort of say they don't want it counted?
Completely disregarded.
Thank you.
Completely disregarded. So it was one of the proposals. I mean, it's disregarded now, and the proposal was to continue that disregard. Absolutely.
I think Councillor Murray wishes to comment on this.
Yes, I think that was a decision of full council on all schemes that that disability pension on armed forces is discounted in every conceivable occasion. That was a policy decision some years ago.
Correct.
Are there any more, Jamie? Right. I've just got a question to ask, which is on page 21, actually, regarding the equality. At our pre-meeting yesterday, I was a bit concerned about 555 people who would be worse off. But I just wondered, actually, in reality, how many cases there will be where people are worse off, because there's reference to the Exceptional Hardship Fund. And is that a fund which the council has, and there's sufficient money in it to support people who will be worse off? I'm just trying to work out in the end how many people will actually be worse off, and that it won't be more than £8 a week.
The average was £8 a week, and if we make the decision to disregard child benefit as income from our scheme, that 555 goes down then to 377, which is 12% of our current working age caseload. So, I mean, it does mean that 88% are either stay the same or actually better off. Yeah, the 377 is an issue. It depends on the amount of our discretionary fund and what we put into our discretionary fund. The only other alternative would be to have some kind of transition protection for an initial year, maybe for that cohort, if you like.
But would there be scope to do that?
Rob, can you come in there? Would that be presumably that would be a council decision? I don't know.
It's something that obviously we can put back in the feedback from this committee to cabinet in the report for consideration, if that's what this if Scrutiny would like us to look at that.
We've got Mr. Small with ask.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose it's the problem of change, really, and I think when you seek to change any system, there will always be winners and losers. Unfortunately, I mean, the best way to ensure that everybody is no worse off is to keep the same system. But I think we've already identified for a number of reasons that doesn't actually help people either. If I'm honest with you, and people don't understand the current system, and not everybody's claiming all of their benefits anyway. So, moving to a transparent, fairer system, easy to interpret, really will, just mean that some people will lose, but 88% are the same or gain, which I think is important to stress. So I think we need to recognise that. Also, the opportunity for more people to enter into the system and realise that they are entitled to benefit is increased as well. So that's got to be a benefit as well. But as I say, I think when you seek to change the system, that there'll always be people who are disadvantaged. And what we've sought to do, is to make sure that we've modelled it in such a way that the vast majority of people are at least the same or better off. And then there's the overall benefits in transparency and ease, of course, which can't be underestimated, I don't think. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I did think a bit like you when I read this report, and I did think about proposing a transition period, but given that the main purpose of the report, well, not the main purpose, but one of the benefits of this change is that it simplifies it. I think transitionary arrangements are an added complication, but much more importantly, we have been told that the number of people affected now has gone dramatically down because and it's not standing at 555 because we've had the disregard, and there is also the hardship fund. I think personally I'm happy with that, how it stands now. Nothing is ideal, but I'm certainly not going to support the idea of a transitionary period on the basis that there is a hardship fund.
Okay, there's no more questions on this, because we do have a recommendation, which is recommendation number 1. I don't know if there's scope to add any comments if this goes back to Cabinet. There's been 1 or 2 points made tonight, which I think perhaps are worth consideration. I don't know if we've got scope to do that. Or are we restricted to recommendations as they are?
So firstly, a Cabinet here tonight anyway to hear the comments of the committee, so they'll obviously be they'll be uppermost in the Cabinet's minds when they're considering the report. Is there an opportunity for draft minutes as well, or at least a summary of the points and feelings of the committee to be summarised for Cabinet's benefit as well, and they'll have those on the night?
Yeah, I think if we can do that, that would be...
We'll ensure that
that would help, I think.
Yeah.
Councillor Murray.
Kind of related to that, but if we're going to be effective for the next meeting, I know this council's in favour of warm places, and I've been told by quite a number of my colleagues that we're not sitting in one of them tonight. I don't know whether there's anything that can be done. I mean, I haven't got long trousers on, so that's my fault. But everyone else who's fully dressed still tells me they're cold.
Unfortunately, we have some problem adjusting the heating. I do report it back. I reported it back at the last meeting, and I'm about to put my jacket on. So,
right. So we do have a recommendation before us. I think it's fairly obvious that we should be supporting option 1. The committee agreed on that. And perhaps some added comments. Also, I think Councillor Whitehouse's comment about this being reported back once the scheme gets going, and perhaps in a year's time, would be a useful one to add. Okay. So if we can move on, I thank the officers for their participation tonight, Rob and Julian, so thank you. Now, I'm losing my way on the agenda here, but that was item 9, so we should be on item 10 now, which actually we can, I think we can just note item 10 because it's been superseded by item 11. That's the Q1 budget monitoring report. It's been it's been replaced by Q2. So can we just acknowledge that we've received Q1 in item 10, and if we move on to item 11, which is on the supplementary, which is the Q2 budget monitoring report for 2023 to 24. And I think I'm probably going to ask Mr. Small, or is it Mr. Hartgrove, to take us through that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. Item 11 then, which appears on pages 3 to 27 of your supplementary agenda this evening, sets out the Q2 position for 23-24. In other words, the forecast outturn for this, the 23-24 financial year, and it's based on available information as of the 30th of September 2023. As pointed out, this actually replaces the item 10 on the agenda, supersedes it. So this presentation will focus on Q2. So onto the detail then. The report covers the revenue and capital positions for both the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. Epping Forest District Council, as with many councils up and down the country, is experiencing a number of financial challenges as it tries to manage the local impact of what is seemingly a never-ending series of shocks to the economy at the moment. Page 5, including Appendix A on page 25, reveals a forecast general fund revenue overspend of 1.307 million as at the end of September, which actually, by way of context, is a slight improvement on Q1, where there was an overspend of 1.523 forecast at the end of June. The most significant factor is rising interest rates as the Bank of England continued its strategy of monthly incremental increases in the base rate up until August 2023. And the council is, of course, a net borrower, so the additional interest we receive on its relatively limited deposits is outweighed by the additional cost of borrowing. Housing revenue account recharges too are problematic for the council as the General Fund is obliged to pass on interest receivable to the HRA in recognition of HRA balances held within the General Fund, so we have to pay more back from the General Fund to the Housing Revenue account as a result of higher interest rates. On-lending margins on Qualis loans are also very small compared to original expectations due to the rising cost of borrowing from the Public Works Loans Board, or PWLB as it's known. Services pressures are relatively limited at this stage, although summary explanations of the significant income and expenditure variances are presented on pages 6 and 7 of the report. This includes a major forecast shortfall of 935,000 on income from planning fees, and spread across many cost centres there still remains a risk on salary costs, with the employer's pay offer for 23-24 so far already in excess of the original budget assumption, and it's yet to be settled. Moving on to the funding position then, that's presented in the table at paragraph 2.5 on page 8. It shows a mixed picture with additional anticipated business rates of 646,000 being offset by a projected shortfall of 225 on receipts from the Essex Council tax sharing agreement. Page 8 explains that. and in the table on paragraph 3.1 on page 9 shows a forecast outturn balance of 1.883 million on the Council's General Fund reserve. Members will recall that this is significantly below the Council's adopted minimum contingency balance of 4 million. The housing revenue account then, the budget is presented on page 11. It's projected to be on course with only a very small overspend anticipated, literally just £13,000. Although the cost of repairs and maintenance continues to be a pressure, driven to an extent by higher than expected void costs. The year-end housing revenue account balance is forecast to end the year at 4.6 million, which is comfortably in excess of the target minimum contingency balance of 2 million, as presented in paragraph 4.4 on page 13. Turning briefly to capital, presented in sections 5 and 6 at the beginning on page 14. Spending on both general fund and HRA capital has continued to be subdued in Q2, with the delayed drawdown of quality loans, as mentioned previously, being the biggest factor behind a forecast underspend of 13.9 million on the general fund programme, and delays to the housing development programme driving a forecast underspend of £35.8 million on the HRA programme. And finally, section 7, beginning on page 17, which covers wider financial performance and risk. This is a new section for 23-24 as we roll out further information in the interests of added transparency and in compliance with good practice. The section covers a selected range of performance indicators, prudential indicators and HRA local indicators. So performance indicators then, that covers how effectively the council collects its income and pays its bills. Prudential indicators, that's reporting in accordance with the updated 2021 SIP for Prudential Code, and that provides further insight on how the council manages its capital expenditure, borrowing and commercial and service investments. And HRA local indicators, there's also a couple of HRA indicators in the council's adopted capital strategy which are also considered. So pages 18 to 23 covers the actual performance and risk outcomes at the Q2 stage. It's generally a mixed picture, reflecting some improved performance over the medium term, especially on the payment of invoices, but also some areas of short-term performance are slightly off track, only slightly I must emphasise, such as local council tax collection. Finally, the collection of sundry debts remains a challenge, but has shown recent signs of improvement. Happy to take any questions.
Right, members, do you have any questions? Okay, Councillor Whitehouse.
Yes, it's actually in the Q1 report, there was a reference to the more than bricks and mortar scheme being underspent. I can't see it in this Q2 one, but I just wondered, sorry? Oh, sorry, you can't hear? Is that better? Ah, good. Yes, in Q1, there was a reference to the more than bricks and mortar scheme being underspent. I can't see it in Q2, but I imagine it's still underspent. I just wondered why, because that's such an important scheme for the residents on those estates. Unfortunately, Holly's not here at the moment to answer, but perhaps somebody could give them some information later on.
Sorry, I'll have to take that one back. I can only assume that it isn't the pressure that it was in Q1, but I'll feedback the answer to that.
If I can come in there, I can't find it in the moment, but I believe there is a reference to the bricks and mortar in the second quarter, but I can't find it offhand at the moment. Page 12. Does that help?
Did you want me to ask the question again of Tolly? I didn't catch what you said.
Well,
I'll take that later.
Sorry if I may, there is a reference to more than bricks and mortar at 4.2 in this report. Section 4.2.
My question was why?
Well, no, it's not why. Councillor Whitehouse, it is actually mentioned. It's at the top of page 12, 4.2. It hasn't been sort of disregarded from the first quarter. It's actually reported in the second quarter as well. It's my understanding. Sorry? Yeah. Do you want to come back on that later on? No? Okay. I think Councillor Nweke, who had your hand up first.
Thank you, Chairman. Just reading through the report, there seems to be some few underspend in the report, and I'm a bit concerned that most of the underspend is based on vent posts that have not been filled. And whilst this is maybe a cost in shortfall, it raises concern about the capacity and efficiency of our facility, for instance, our facility management function and other positions that have not been filled. I'm just wondering, would it be possible to have a report on the impact it's having on the workforce, for instance, in terms of the increased workload, the decreased efficiency, and the impact the positions that have not been filled is having on the services that we're providing?
Whereabouts, can you say whereabouts that is on the report? It would help, I think.
Yes. In terms of the, for example, we have the housing.
Yeah, can you give the page number?
I'm just going to look for that. So, yes, page 15. Yes, what I'm referring to is on page 15, where we have focus of underspend, and some of them are based on the vacancies that have not been filled, which is the one that stood out to me was the facility management one vacancy, where there's 2 posts that has not been filled. I'm just looking at that at the moment.
Mr. Hargrove, does that help? Can you answer that question? Can you, Councillor Nweke, can you?
It pinpoints the variance, but I'll follow it up with the head of service to get a clearer picture of exactly what's going on, unless anybody else could possibly help me out at all on that.
I think Councillor Chris Whitbread looks as if he can help.
Whether I can help, Chairman, is another thing, but I can't remember a time when we've got to this point in the financial year when we haven't got a vacancy percentage of people where posts are vacant. I'm not saying it's the perfect world, but as we mentioned earlier on this evening, vacancies exist. We know we've got vacancies in certain areas where we would like them to be filled as quickly as possible for the efficiency of the authority. But whenever you go through a budget process, there's always a vacancy rate at any given time.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Swan.
Largely to agree with the leader, of course. I mean, as the report highlights, that there is a forecast overspending of £1.3 million in the year. I mean, that's something that we need to take action to deal with. As the report identifies, balances for the general fund are already lower than we would like them to be. So one of the actions that we're looking at is all vacancies that do come up within the organisation, we look at very carefully to think whether they can be left unfilled for a period of time. So that's one of the reasons that does contribute to an increased vacancy level at this point in time. It's really a deliberate response to try and manage the overspend that the organisation is forecasting at this point in time.
Okay. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, Mr Small's always so helpful because he's not alluded, directly mentioned again the issue I was going to put really, I think, firmly to the Leader of Council. Page 5, we've got this table that shows quite clearly that at the moment this is the projected overspend or difference between what we were expecting. Are we going to see any kind of dramatic decisions that are going to be made mid-financial year, and are we going to be very transparent about what decisions are going to have to be made if we're going to get anywhere near the budget of 17.6?
Chairman, if I can come back on that, because obviously we are very transparent with the budget. That's why this report's here this evening before it comes to Cabinet, and actually before many Cabinet members have seen it in detail. So I think that shows how transparent we are. I would also say to Councillor Murray that councils up and down the country are dealing with a variety of overspends for a whole range of different reasons, depending on the size of the authority. So there are challenges out there. As a council, we're always looking to mitigate those overspends in different ways, whether that be through finding savings in year, to looking at other ways of dealing with things. But what it does actually highlight is the very challenging budget-making process that is ahead of us. And it shows the importance this year, more than any other year, of members engaging with the budget process, and when it comes to scrutiny, to come here and actively play their part in it. I won't make bones that I think this is going to be probably one of the toughest years for budget making, and I hate to tell you this, but I think the year after will be even tougher. We are coming through, we're post-pandemic, but we're probably in the toughest economic climate I've ever known in 20 odd years of being here, and probably the toughest since the Second World War. So I wouldn't make for 1 minute light of the budget process and the challenges we have for the year ahead. We are going to have some very tough decisions, and it's not going to be easy.
I know it wasn't deliberate because that was a useful answer. I was quite specific. Are there any kind of ideas floating around to try and claw back that 1.3 million in this financial year? Is the Leader of Council able to share whether there are any clear ideas, and when would we be aware of what those clear ideas are?
Obviously, each service area will be looking at their mitigation strategies for those pieces, and I would say when we come back to scrutiny, probably at the next meeting, we will come back and give you some ideas of the sort of things we've been looking at. But to be honest with you, Councillor Murray, it's not easy, because when we set that budget last year, it was a very tight budget, and I know some members didn't like it. We made some choices then to keep certain things, and the challenge will be is can we continue to provide those services into the future. To make the decisions now is going to be difficult, and if we can do things in year we will, but I would say to members, be acutely aware what we can't solve in year we will have to solve as we move forward. These problems aren't going away.
Thank you.
Councillor Patel and Councillor Parsons.
I think Councillor Radket Patel first.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is related to local tax collection and the table indicated on page 19. Just obviously the position this year is slightly lower than where we were last year, but the concern I have is where we have write-offs, and particularly when we have a reliance on collecting this money in to support our income into the council. What are we doing proactively to ensure that we manage to collect the monies that are due to the council through council tax and business rates?
Jim, do you want to come in then, Chris?
Yeah, come in, please.
Yeah. Well, obviously we have a recovery plan that, although it's down on slightly down on last year, that can often be when your actual recovery processes take place in cycles during the year. So it's really the longer term trend that we're looking for. We're anticipating an uptick in collection, although it might not look at the moment this year. Now, obviously, we will continue with everything that we can. We have well rehearsed processes in place to collect the money we can. So I'm expecting a slightly higher collection rate this year than there was last year, as things stand. So that's all I can really say at the moment. We have established processes in place that are obviously chase that up where it can. Yeah, and it's something we're keeping on top of very closely.
Right, thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thanks, Chairman. I wanted to ask about the forecast planning overspend of just over £1 million. So it looks like the economy is going to take quite a long time to recover as it is, so I'd assume that the lack of applications will continue. So is anything going to be, look at doing anything to try and encourage developers to maybe put applications forward for local plan sites, or alternatively look to raise money in another way to make up that shortfall?
Right, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you for the question. There are government increases coming in, and we are actively, where we know there are major applications, mentioning the increases, hopefully on the basis that some of them might put it in before the increase. So it's a very challenging time for planning, and it's shown in the overspend. But we are looking at every avenue to save money, efficiencies, and so trying to bring some of those applications forward, maybe.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. It's about loans, because it seems to indicate in here that we're going to struggle to, or it's going to be an extra pressure on to pay back the loans that we've taken out, but Qualis aren't going to deliver quite as much as we expected them to deliver, because they're supposed to be producing a secondary income. So if we have to pay a higher interest rate from the Public Works Loan Board, do we pass that on straight to Qualis?
We haven't done in the main so far, because those are existing loan commitments. So we're still making a margin on those loans, but the more recent ones, those loan rates are being renegotiated. So there is a gap opening up again. So I don't know if Mr. Small wants to come in on this.
Yes, at the point in time that we agreed a lending facility with Qualis, we agreed a rate of interest on that as well, so that they could undertake their developments and knowing what their borrowing cost would be. It was I think it was kind of an arrangement you would get with a bank as well. So at that point in time, as an authority, we chose not to borrow all of the money associated with that, knowing that the drawdown would be over an extended period of time. So the council took the cash flow risk, if you like, of interest rates varying. I don't think we foresaw, well, in fact, I can say was for certain we didn't foresee that the interest rates would increase dramatically following the Ukraine invasion and the Ukrainian war. So I think that came as a pressure on the council, really. Interest rates have been very stable and very static for a very long period of time prior to that. So the council's margin has been squeezed as a result of that. Could have been passed on to Qualis, but that would have just meant the developments that they were undertaking would have been unviable, I suppose, really, with the high rates of interest. So, we agreed with Qualis a fixed rate of interest at the point in time that the funding arrangement was struck, and we've honoured that on the basis it is signed into a legal agreement.
So we are now stuck in a rock and a hard place of bankrupting the company that we own in order to, well, potentially, if it goes really, really badly. Use a bit of hyperbole. So there will come a point at some point where the interest rates have to increase, otherwise there'd be no point in us borrowing the money.
For any new scheme that the Qualis seeks to develop, we'll reflect a revised rate of interest for those ones. So anything that they've committed to and took and started development of, we've honoured the rate of interest that we agreed with them. as I say, because they would have expected that arrangement with the commercial market. For all new schemes, we're taking account of current interest rates. In fact, actually in a volatile position in terms of interest rates and lending at the moment. There's flexibility in the loan agreements to reflect borrowing at the time we take it, as opposed to based upon long-term trends, which is where we used which is what the facility was built upon originally.
Right. Is there any further questions? Oh, Councillor Kiver.
Considering the unique position that Qualis has with the council, is there any potential to review that arrangement? Is there any scope to review it at all, just considering the fact that Qualis is a very unique relationship in terms of borrowing and lending? It is, not borrowing from a bank, it's borrowing from the council. Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity to review that arrangement in light of what's happened, so that the council can maybe have less of a burden?
I would encourage, I think, yes, the relationship, and this is one of the advantages I would say is with Qualis, is that we can have an adult conversation with Qualis, and we look at the kind of overall benefit for both parties. So we can do that, and we do. So we have a kind of a grown-up relationship, I suppose, in there. I would say, of course, that if the council charges Qualis more, then Qualis makes less, and the council gets less money back. So it's I think in some respect, it's better to look at the two organisations as one organisation, and whatever you do, it's broadly neutral across the two organisations. So yes, you could, but the net result for the council overall would be the same.
Okay. Are there any further questions on this item? We've got.
I think just to clarify my point, I think my point there really is just the timing of it, and the cash flow advantages to reviewing that. If there's the same outcome, but we can improve cash flow, that's my point I'm making. I understand the difference in timing, and that's my query.
I meet with the finance director of Qualis on a weekly basis, and we talk about these sort of issues really, and then also meet with Councillor Phillip as well as portfolio holder. So I think we're always exploring the angles. The business case for Qualis for the next period is just about to come forward. I think probably I think it's December's cabinet meeting, and to scrutiny as well. So there'll be an opportunity to look about some of the proposals and the plans and the cash flow as well as part of that.
Okay, if no more questions, so we've got 5 recommendations, stroke decisions required. Are we happy to agree those? Yep. Right, we're now going to item 12, which is a medium-term financial plan, 2024 to 25 and to 2028 to 2029, and that's on pages 46 to 67 of the main agenda. And I think it's back to Mr Hargrove again.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 12 then. This is the first iteration of the medium-term financial plan, or the MTFP as we call it, within the 24-25 budget cycle, and it was presented to Cabinet on the 9th of October. It's a forward-looking document which provides a tentative look at the Council's financial picture over the next 5 years, 24-25 through to 28-29, and it sets a scene by providing a framework for developing both the general fund and the housing revenue account budgets for 24-25. The general fund forecast within the MTFP reveals a projected deficit of 3.72 million for 24-25. This reflects major spending pressures due to a large extent increasing financing costs driven by capital commitments and higher interest rates, which is exacerbated by an anticipated rise in waste management costs as upon the expiry of the current Biffa waste collection contract in November 2024. Looking further ahead, assuming a balanced budget is achieved for 23-24 without recourse to the use of reserves, a further budget gap is expected to open up again on the general fund from 25-26, with an annual budget pressures in the range of 376,000 to 557,000 annually up until 28-29. The HRA forecast reveals a small surplus in 24-25, followed by two planned deficits, I must emphasise, for 25-26 and 26-7, before coming back into balance for 27-28 and 28-29. It should be noted that the HRA balance can comfortably withstand the planned deficits. For example, as reported in item 11 on this evening's agenda, the projected balance on the HRA for the 31st of March 2024 is currently 4.6 million, which is more than double the adopted minimum of 2 million. Finance officers with strategic direction from Cabinet, of course, are currently working hard on developing draft budget options that address the projected budget deficit, and they'll be considered by the Cabinet on the 4th of December. Thereafter, and in accordance with the financial planning framework adopted by the Cabinet on the 18th of September, the detailed scrutiny process will commence, including the overview and scrutiny committee scheduled for the 23rd of January. This includes both full consideration of both the General Fund and the HRA draft budgets and, as usual, initial proposals for fees and charges for the year ahead. Of course, given the size of the deficit again this year, special attention will be given to the budget savings embedded in the draft balanced budget. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Small, did you want to add to that?
If I can, and actually to repeat some of what the leader's already said. In Councillor Phillips' absence, I think it's incumbent on me to say this is probably the hardest budget we've ever had to face. I think our budget challenge we've had to face. £3.7 million worth of gap next year is a significant challenge, I think, for the organisation, on top of £4 million of savings that we identified last year. And I think it gets increasingly difficult to try and find opportunities to balance the budget within the envelope that we're working to. So as the leader has already said to an extent, expect some difficult choices, I think, this time round. It's inevitable. It's not unique, first of all, to Epping Forest by any stretch. I think councils up and down the country are struggling with their budgetary positions, and you will have seen, no doubt, in the national news, a number of councils have either issued 114 notices, including Birmingham, of course, the largest council in the country, and a number of other councils are on the brink of issuing Section 114 notices as well. So this is an extremely difficult time for councils. It's much easier to deal with economic changes, when they happen gradually. But when they happen all of a sudden, economic shocks, that it's much harder to adapt your budgets in a short time frame. So, in danger of repeating what the leader has already said, really, I should just say it's probably I think it is the hardest budget that we've ever had to face, I think, budget challenge. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Murray?
One serious comment and then one light-hearted comment to lift it a little bit. This does just show how difficult it is, and I'm not putting blame anywhere at the moment. That would be inappropriate. But I think it's not just difficult next year. It's the difficult period in the few years after that. And I think my light-hearted comment would be, we know we've got all-out elections next year. Why would any individual councillor want to stand on the basis of this report? And why would any single group, including the independents, want to win 28 out of the 54 seats? I can't see why they would, really.
Right. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. On the inflation chart at 3.3, page 56, I'm a little bit wondering about the first line there, employees, where 24-25 is 899,287. Then he goes down to 467 for the rest of the other 4 years. Am I missing the point there?
So that,
Yeah, the table in 3.3, the inflation table, as with the other tables, actually shows the incremental movement from one year to the next. So if you look at inflation is in employee costs is expected to go down as the years progress. So there is a peak in 24-25 because we're coming off the back of high inflation. But also the other point to note is that we're actually, because we've overspent on the budget assumption in 23-24, we don't know yet by how much because it's not settled, but we do know we're probably going to have to pay more than the budget assumption. So therefore, we have to add that again on top in terms of the base budget to catch up with the 23-24 budget. That's why you get a peak in 24-25. It's a combination of those two factors.
Councillor Niket Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I know we've had discussion around savings, and I'm looking at page 58 in particular, section 3.6, and we're saying that no savings are assumed within the projections. But when we're looking at the prioritisation of potential cashable savings in the context of budget deficit and council priorities, what does that actually look like in reality in terms of member engagement? How do we, because it's saying that the views of members are sought on the prioritisation, but what does that look like in reality?
I'm not sure. Councillor Whitbread might better.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure Councillor Patel remembers last year as a member of the Cabinet that we obviously were actively engaged from early on the budget making process. And of course there are regular reports to Cabinet. Last month, I think, we had the issues and options paper, what I always call it, because I'm probably a little bit old-fashioned, I've been around for too long, sometimes on finances to see it any other way, but we had the issues and options paper. Members have the opportunity to be engaged there. Obviously, these regular reports come forward to scrutiny to make sure that members are aware and can challenge where we are in that process. So there's plenty of opportunity. The Cabinet will be meeting on an away day to discuss the issues that are forthcoming from the budget. I have to say to members, I think this is more fundamental than just finding savings. And I think Councillor Murray has said earlier on that this is a medium-term issue, not just a short-term issue. This will not go away. You know, we can find the savings, but unless we find the solutions to keep those savings running year on year and realise we can't live beyond our means in this new world. Just for instance, and I think this is important, and one of my favourite subjects at the moment is car parks. Pre-pandemic, our car parks were probably filled to 80%, 85% capacity, around those sort of levels. Today, some car parks are still around 30 to 40%, and others are around 60%. That means we're no longer making the income from car parks we used to make, which is bad for our high streets, or is it because there are more people walking into our high streets? But it's really bad for our revenue streams. People don't realise, you know, we are not council tax rich as a district council. We rely upon our revenue streams. That's why, and actually some of the pieces earlier on around Qualis, don't just focus on what Qualis do for us from the point of view of the interest rates and everything else. Their work on our asset base, our commercial asset base, has been fundamental and has actually brought us in an extra $500,000 within 6 months. So that's going to be really important to us in the future. And also we are going to have to look at the way that we work. And our officer team has already been working on shared services. We will have to go further. There are big pieces of work that need to be done, and we are focused on, and actually it comes back to Councillor Murray's point about what are you doing to mitigate the situation at the present time. We are working tirelessly as a team within the council to see what can be done and what we can do differently as well as what we do now. So, Councillor Patel, you're right to ask the question Where will you be engaged as a scrutiny panel? What we had last year, which was a tough budget last year, let's not make any bones about it. We had to increase our council tax to the maximum, find really big savings. We didn't get anything back from scrutiny at all. Not one comment back, not one a piece of additionality came from scrutiny last year on the budget. So that's the duty of scrutiny. When we get to that joint scrutiny and cabinet committee meeting where we discuss the budget and what's in it, we need scrutiny to come back with its ideas, because it won't be good enough just to say I disagree with the budget, or with no explanation as to why you disagree with the budget. That's the role of scrutiny in the future. It really has got to hold the executive to account and be an active part of actually how we shape the council's future. Because last year, not members within my group, because they came to us directly about what they wanted to see from the budget, but some members voted against the budget because they didn't like the increase in council tax. But then they did, they forgot by voting against the budget, they weren't voting for a new swimming pool in Epping at 33 million. They weren't voting to keep the highways rangers, and they weren't voting to keep the policemen here. This year, the choice is going to be even tougher. And we really do need, not my group, but other groups to step up and actually play their part in the budget process.
Right, are there any more questions? I think the only comment I can make on what Councillor Whitbread has just said is to perhaps draw attention to the last paragraph on page 58, which I think we've already covered really, where it does, it refers to savings and etc. It would be nice if members could come forward with a few ideas, not just for savings, but perhaps increasing the revenue. Not an easy task, but it is down there if we can do it. So I think if we go back to, if no more questions on this, our recommendations at 1 on page 46, can we agree with that? Thank you. Right, I think we're on item 13 now. Can't you find it? Not the easiest thing to do. Right, item 13 is a capital programme update 2024 to 25, 2028 to 29. That's on pages 68 to 78. And I think that's back to Mr Hargrove.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 13 on the agenda then, the capital programme update 24-25 to 28-29, which appears on pages 68 to 78 of the main agenda this evening. This is the updated indicative, I'll emphasise the word indicative capital programme for 24-25 to 28-29, presented to Cabinet on the 9th of October. Sits alongside the revenue budget and is in an integral part of the overall budget. At that meeting, the contents of the reports were considered and discussed, including the implications for both the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. Cabinet also agreed that the report should go forward for scrutiny by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in accordance with the Financial Planning Framework, which was adopted on the 18th of September, and the report before you therefore fulfils that commitment. The updated capital programme provides essential context and is a key part of the early budget preparations for 24-25. It's in two parts and comprises total investment of 210.258 million, of which 53.913 is General Fund, and the remaining 156.345 million is Housing Revenue Account. And that covers a 5-year period, 24-25 to 28-29. Full details are included in attachment 1 of the report on pages 70 to 78, noting especially the detailed summaries on pages 77 and 78. I must re-emphasise that this is merely an indicative programme at this stage and essentially reflects roll forward existing schemes and ongoing items such as externally funded capital spending on disabled facilities grants and planned property works. A notable exception to this is ICT, which has not been automatically rolled forward into 28-29. The current ICT strategy is currently under review by the Joint ICT and Transformation Director in the light of the evolving transformation, including shared services needs of the Council. Updated ICT proposals will be presented in the wider draft capital proposals presented to Cabinet in December. The next stage in the process will see the assumptions and projections in both the General Fund and the HRA capital programmes further refined in accordance with the direction provided by Cabinet, emerging intelligence and feedback from this committee. This will include making the necessary adjustments to the revenue consequences of capital spending assumed in revenue budgets. Happy to take any questions.
Right. Mr Small, do you want to say something? Because part of the report has got your name against it.
Nothing to add, Chair, thank you.
Okay. So, members, any questions? Right. Can I have any... No questions at all. Clean bill of health. So I think that just takes us to the recommendations then on page 70. Recommendations 1 and 2, and also there's I think further ones, because it's in 2. Well, yes, I've missed out. The main recommendation is on page 68, and then there's the other 2 on page 70. So can we agree all those? Thank you. Right. We've dealt with, that's the capital programme update. Item 14 we've already dealt with supplementary, so we're on to item 15, which is on pages 79 to 81 in the first case. So this is the Community Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Aniket Patel, and also Place Scrutiny Committee, which is Councillor Helen Kane. So perhaps if you go first, Councillor Aniket Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. My committee met on the 26th of September. We had a presentation from the community champions, and it was a great presentation on the value that volunteers have within our community, and it highlights with a bit of guidance from our officers what can actually be achieved within the communities. Especially at a stage when volunteering within communities is at a low. But listening to some of the case studies that came forward from the community champions was really heartwarming. And I think the committee members that were present appreciated that, as did other members that were there. And if members haven't had an opportunity to look at the webcast, I encourage them to do so, because it's a project that we run really well, and can be a model of excellence right throughout Essex. The other items on the agenda were very housing focused, and essentially we had an item about bringing landlord policies in line with updating them and bringing them in line. And we also had an item on housing allocation scheme and annual lettings report. I'm happy to take any questions if members have any.
Yeah, I think Councillor Murray had his hand up.
I'm going to keep my remarks short because of the lateness of the hour, but I would endorse what's just been said about the community champions. I've sat through too many presentations in this council, and that was one of the best. It really was. Their drive, their enthusiasm, their contribution to the local communities. The only other comment I would make, and I'm sure that every single member had good reasons, I don't doubt that at all, but the end result was not very good. there was the chairman and vice chairman sitting where you were, and then there was myself, Councillor Brooks, and the new member from Epping. Apologies if I get the name wrong, but I think it's Councillor Sheriff, and not a single other member of the committee were there. And I accept there were probably good reasons for every individual member, but I think we would all agree that that's not very good to have the chairman and vice chairman and then just 3 other members of the scrutiny panel there. So I just think there needs to be a bit of communication across members from particularly one group. And I'll put it as gently and as carefully as I can.
I just wonder if Councillor Patel has any idea why that was.
There were apologies that were received and personal circumstances, which meant that some members were unable to attend.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor. Sorry.
Chairman, I'd also like to note that there was a large number of the Cabinet there.
Right. Okay, Councillor Helen Kane, your report.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Chairman, members, we had a very interesting meeting on Tuesday, the 19th of September, which actually 2 items captured the interest of the local press in a very positive way. First of all, we actually agreed to the work programme. Then we had from Mandy Thompson, the Interim Active Service Director, an overview, an update on the transfer of the grounds maintenance survey to Qualis Property Solutions, followed by a presentation of the grounds maintenance service update from Qualis. It was quite an interesting presentation. We asked quite a lot of questions. We welcomed the update, and of course we recognised the value, and we acknowledge that there has been an improvement since the previous presentation, and we're looking forward to the next one. There are quite a lot of actions, and we actually recommend that Qualis provide details of the organisational structure of the grounds maintenance team, which they did provide recently. To Qualis to ensure ward members were invited to the estate walkabouts, and of course consideration to be given to the development of a referral system to allow residents a single point of contact for all ground maintenance issues, irrespective of ownership and responsibility as an outcome of the GIS mapping project. We also found out, which is very interesting, that the Essex County Council were responsible for the enforcement of overgrown private hedges. Now, after that, the item that actually was of interest to the public as well as the press was the Public Space Protection Order dog control. And this is really, the committee were advised that the council tried to encourage responsible dog ownership, and an operational public space protection order would streamline and improve the enforcement process carried out by the council's environmental and neighbourhood officers. Of course, there will be a consultation period, but this PSPO would last for 3 years, with an option to amend and extend for a further 3 years. Of course, the committee, you understand, they welcome the report, and we're looking forward to be implemented. The other one that actually it was in the press as well. It is about the Public Space Protection Order, Debden Broadway. Mandy Thompson introduced the Public Space Protection Order, Debden Broadway, Antisocial Behaviour, Cramming and Policing Act 2014 report. Members, let's face it, we have seen quite a lawless by a lot of youngsters in our areas, not just in Debden, but in everywhere. And we welcomed that report, really we did, because we thought that if that is a success, it will continue to other areas of the district. So that means that enforcement would be carried out with existing resources. Officers will have the powers to request names and addresses. Low-level ASB should be reported to the council. And of course, the PSPR would give the powers to identify where the perpetrators of the ASB were from. Obviously, we, the committee, endorse the recommendations of the report to Cabinet. It shows, though, from the reaction of the public and the press that they do watch the webcast, because we didn't have public audience at all in that meeting. I wish we had more councillors, because there's so much interesting things we actually discuss, and our aim is, of course, to see that those schemes to go through and monitor the results. And then we finish with James Warwick took us on the Essex draft waste strategy, which is just for noting, really, because it is mainly about the consultation, to acknowledge the consultation exercise on the draft waste strategy. And that is it from me. Thank you very much, Chairman.
I'd like to thank you for that report. It's very detailed, lots of information there. And do members have any questions on it? No? I think it was so full and complete that no questions were required. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're moving on now to, I did have everything in place, but it's actually item 16, which is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee work programme, which is on the supplementary paper. I think really, as you're all members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, you ought to be up to speed on this, but I think the only thing which I should mention is that it's a proposed extra meeting on the 21st of November, and that is going to be the Qualis business plan and also the place strategy. There's a slight error on your agenda where it says new item under the Qualis business plan is actually repeated on the line below, so it's just the place strategy. And the lead officer on those is Mr. Small. I don't know if he wants to give us an advance warning of what he's likely to be saying, in particular about the place strategy, so I'm not quite sure what that means.
I think, Chair, really it's about setting out direction and scope, I think, of the council's activities across the district, really, in terms of development and other initiatives, really. So I think it's about trying to frame the future work of the council by trying to put it within an overarching document. So I think that's probably as much as I'll say at this stage, if that's okay.
Okay. I will ask if there are any questions or any comments to make. But, that not being the case, if we can move on to item 17, which is the Cabinet business, which is on pages 84 to 92. And I don't know if you want to go through those a page at a time, and I can, if anybody's got any points they want to raise. So if we go to page 85, I think it is. Councillor Murray.
Yes, Chairman. I think this one's quite important, so I am going to spend not a long time, but not cut my remarks short, and I will resist talking on any others. Leader portfolio holder, interim polling districts as a result of the boundary review. We know that we've got new wards. We know that the decision of polling districts are really important, because a polling district is an area where that group of people go and vote in a certain place. I would like to think that there is going to be considerable involvement of member knowledge, because they're new wards. I wouldn't expect officers to have a detailed local knowledge of those wards. Members will struggle to have detailed, but they have detailed local knowledge of their own wards and how they could be impacted by new wards, because the drawing up of polling districts are really important, because you need to know the size of the polling station that polling district would have, because that depends on how many staff you can have there. You need to know what the access is to those polling stations, what the amount of car parking is to those polling stations, where the main roads are and so on, because I wouldn't want a polling district where there was unnecessary really main roads for people to cross. So what I'm attempting to say, perhaps not very well, is a really detailed knowledge is required for the drawing up, even if they're interim, of polling districts. And that's what local members can bring. Yes, there's a level of expertise from officers, but it's not just a number game. Polling districts are not just a number game, and you try and make polling districts within a ward even, because it doesn't work like that. So I think members on this particular issue do have real insight and real knowledge that should be part of that process. And I would hope that that would be kind of common currency. I don't think I've stated anything that's particularly revolutionary.
Yeah, I think the question there is how that would be arranged. And
thank you, Chair. I think it's at least a year away, I think, before we can get round to that point in time. So I think we'll certainly be thinking about getting the elections out of the way in May, first of all, before we start any work on that. That gives us time to think about how we can engage with members as part of this process. So can we take that one away, please?
I think Councillor may want to come back on that.
I'm not quite sure I heard that. So was that answer saying...
Could you switch your mic on, please?
I'm not quite sure I fully heard that. Is that saying that the polling districts for the initial all-out elections in May 24 won't have any member involvement, and that would have to come later?
For the elections in May 24, that we're using the existing polling districts, which I think is my understanding of it. And this is about changing polling districts after the elections in May. So you see the date on that report is not before October 2024.
I stand to be corrected, but I don't think...
Andrew King.
Sorry.
I can only talk about my own ward in knowledge, but that doesn't work in my own ward, because at least one of the polling districts is split in two. So you presumably can't use, or are you just saying that the existing polling districts might be subdivided on the basis of where they are in new wards?
Can I get our election team to talk to you about that? Perhaps there might be an easy way through this.
Yeah, Chairman, I think Councillor Murray makes a good point, and I think there's probably something that needs to be picked up on. Perhaps if we have a chat with the election team, I think there might need to be a member briefing on how this will break down. So it's really fundamental, especially for all us who are going to be traipsing the streets during the early part of next year and into the middle of the year. I really think it's important that we actually have an understanding of how it's going to work, and I'd ask for that meeting as soon as possible.
Councillor Holly-Whitburn.
Thank you, Chairman. And actually, just building on Councillor Murray's point there, I think it is an important point, and for residents as well, because there are wards where polling divisions are divided up and it will cause quite a lot of confusion. So I think that's something that needs to be made clear, and how it's going to be made clear to residents needs to be sorted out pretty promptly. Thank you.
Chairman, whilst I dread the thought of sending out the council tax bills this year, it might be a good idea to actually put some information in with the council tax bills as to the makeup of the new district.
Yeah, okay, I think that's a good point. I think we need to note that down. Don't we? Okay, so moving down the page, is there any other questions? We're on to the place portfolio holders. No? We're going over the page on page 86. Are there any questions arising on page 86? No. On to page 87. Any questions? No. Page 88. Page 89. Page 90. Page 91. And finally, page 92. So let's through it pretty quick. There is just a recommendation which was on page I can find it. There was a recommendation somewhere. I've lost track of it.
Just goes on.
Sorry?
You just agree with that.
So, page 4, right, thank you. Always good to get help. So can we agree that? Is there a business like that? So, item 18, exclusion of the public and press. I don't think we need to do that.
No need to exclude anybody.
Sorry?
No. No exclusion.
Let's do that. Wasn't there something else you wanted to mention?
They've done it, it was the day of the meeting.
No, it was the 23rd, wasn't it?
I'll circulate it.
Okay. Right, with that,
I think they've gone.
thank you, members.
Thank you.
Long meeting. Thank you very much.
Well done, Chairman.